Venom, The Last Dance. Chapter 1. The shadows close in. Eddie Brock was running again. His breath came in ragged gasps as the rain-soaked alley blurred past him, the pounding footsteps of the law echoing behind. Venom's voice slithered in his mind, as it always did, dark, grating, impatient. "Eddie, this is getting tiresome. Let me handle them." Eddie pushed forward, ignoring the symbiote's growl. "No, we can't, not here." The streets of New York were too exposed. Too many eyes. The last thing he needed was to unleash Venom in front of a camera. The public was already torn on whether he was a hero or a menace. One more slip, and it would all be over. A flash of blue and red lights cut through the mist ahead. Eddie's heart sank. There was no escape. "We're surrounded, Eddie. Time to eat." Venom's hunger clawed at him, but Eddie clenched his jaw. Not now. He could feel the symbiote's frustration, feel the way it wanted to tear free and take control. But it wasn't just the police anymore. Something else was lurking in the shadows, watching. Eddie could feel its cold gaze like an itch in the back of his skull. "What is it?" he muttered under his breath. "What's out there?" Venom, for once, was silent. But the answer came swiftly as the air seemed to thicken with an unnatural energy. Out of the fog stepped a figure, tall and shrouded in something darker than night. It wasn't human. It wasn't even from this world. "You cannot hide from us, Eddie Brock." The voice was a whisper, barely a sound, but it cut through the noise like a knife. "The reckoning has come." For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Even Venom, always brash, always hungry, recoiled inside Eddie. "We know that voice." Venom's tone, suddenly filled with fear, sent a chill down Eddie's spine. "What the hell is that thing?" There was no answer. The figure raised a hand, and the world around Eddie exploded into chaos. How do you think Eddie and Venom will handle this new threat? Stay tuned and subscribe to find out where this shocking journey leads. Chapter 2. The reckoning begins. The air crackled with energy as the mysterious figure advanced, sending Eddie crashing against the alley wall. Venom surged forward, tendrils flaring out in defense, wrapping around Eddie protectively. "Who are you?" Eddie spat, trying to stand his ground. The figure didn't answer, but its eyes, glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light, narrowed as it looked at the symbiote. "We are here for what is ours," it said, voice low but commanding. "You were never meant to bond with this thing. Your time together has corrupted the balance." Venom hissed, thrashing in defiance, but Eddie could feel the fear simmering beneath the surface. "What do you mean ours?" Eddie demanded. He could barely comprehend what was happening, but something told him this figure, whatever it was, had a connection to Venom's origins, something deep and dangerous. "They are coming, Eddie. This is not just about you anymore," Venom whispered, something like dread creeping into his voice. "I feel them. The others." Before Eddie could process Venom's cryptic warning, the figure moved with lightning speed, closing the distance between them in an instant. A blast of dark energy erupted from its hands, slamming into Eddie's chest, sending him hurtling into a dumpster. Pain lanced through his body, but he could feel Venom surging back to life, healing him almost instantly. "Run," Venom urged, but Eddie was already on his feet, ready to fight. "You think you can take me?" Eddie growled, allowing Venom's rage to bleed into his own. The black tendrils of the symbiote lashed out, wrapping around the figure, trying to crush it. But the figure didn't even flinch. With a simple wave of its hand, the tendrils disintegrated, falling away like ash in the wind. "You cannot fight what you do not understand, Eddie Brock." The figure's voice was steady, cold, like a predator toying with its prey. "Your days with the symbiote are numbered." Eddie could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Venom, usually brimming with confidence, was silent, waiting for Eddie's next move. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, the realization that whatever this thing was, it was far more powerful than anything he'd faced before. But Eddie wasn't one to back down. "We've been through worse," he muttered, more to himself than to Venom. "And we survived." The figure seemed to sense Eddie's resolve, and for the first time, its expression shifted, if only slightly. "The end is coming, Eddie Brock. You cannot escape it." As the figure dissolved into the shadows, leaving Eddie alone in the alley, a sinking feeling settled in his gut. The end was coming. And he wasn't sure he was ready for it. Will Eddie and Venom survive this new, overwhelming force? Subscribe and share to witness the shocking twists ahead. Chapter 3. The hunt begins. Eddie slammed the door behind him, his chest heaving with the weight of everything that had just happened. He stood there for a moment, leaning against the wall of his dingy apartment, trying to catch his breath. The room was dark, lit only by the dim streetlight filtering through the blinds. Venom rippled across his skin, unsettled, a sign of his own agitation. What was that thing? Eddie finally asked aloud, wiping the rain and sweat from his face. Venom remained silent, uncharacteristically so. Come on, talk to me. You knew something back there. The symbiote finally responded, though its voice was quieter than usual, filled with unease. I don't know. Not fully. But, there are things out there, Eddie. Beings that control more than just worlds. They control us. Eddie frowned, pacing the small space. You mean, like, symbiote gods? More of your kind? Yes. But they aren't like me. They don't bond. They dominate. Venom's voice was a growl now, tinged with fear and defiance. They want control back. You were never supposed to have me. Eddie shook his head, the weight of Venom's words heavy on him. So what, they're here to take you away? To kill me? Venom didn't answer directly. They are hunting us, Eddie. And they won't stop until we're separated. Or destroyed. The cold reality hit Eddie like a punch to the gut. For years, they had fought side by side, partners in chaos, battling enemies that could barely comprehend their strength. But now, they were facing something much bigger. A force from beyond the stars, something that made even Venom, a creature of boundless confidence, tremble. A loud thud outside his window snapped Eddie out of his thoughts. He rushed to the window, pulling back the blinds just enough to peer through. There, in the shadows across the street, he saw it, a figure, unmoving, watching. It was the same one from the alley. The one that called itself the Reckoning. It's here, Eddie whispered, his pulse quickening. It followed us. Before he could react, the window shattered, glass spraying into the room as a massive black tendril whipped through, wrapping around Eddie's throat. Venom surged, but the tendril tightened, lifting him off the ground with ease. Eddie gasped for breath, trying to pull free, but the strength of the tendril was overwhelming. We need to fight. Venom roared inside him, but Eddie couldn't respond. His vision blurred, darkness creeping in from the edges as the life was choked out of him. Just when he thought it was over, the tendril suddenly released, dropping him to the floor with a painful thud. Eddie coughed, sucking in air as he scrambled to his feet. The Reckoning stood in the center of his apartment now, its presence filling the room with a suffocating sense of dread. You are weak, Eddie Brock, it said, its voice a cold whisper. And your bond with the symbiote has made you weaker. Surrender it now, or face annihilation. Venom surged, tendrils wrapping around Eddie protectively, but Eddie could feel the fear coursing through their connection. This wasn't a battle they could win with brute force. Not this time. Eddie stared at the figure, wiping blood from his mouth. We're not going anywhere, he spat, his voice hoarse but defiant. You'll have to kill me first. The Reckoning tilted its head slightly, almost as if amused. So be it. Without warning, the figure lunged forward, faster than Eddie could react. Venom shot out, trying to block the attack, but the Reckoning's power was overwhelming. It swatted Venom aside like an insect, slamming Eddie into the wall so hard the plaster cracked around him. We're going to die, Eddie thought, the words unspoken, but clear in his mind. He could feel Venom struggling to hold them together, but it wasn't enough. Not against this. Then, just as the Reckoning raised its hand for the killing blow, the air around them rippled with a deep, resonating hum. Another presence filled the room, an energy that was both familiar and foreign. The Reckoning stopped, turning its head toward the source of the disturbance. Eddie, barely conscious, followed its gaze. His eyes widened as another figure emerged from the shadows, but this one was different. Larger. More menacing. Its form crackled with dark energy, and its voice, when it spoke, was like thunder. You're not taking him. Not yet. Who is this new figure? Will Eddie and Venom survive the forces conspiring against them? Subscribe and share to see what happens next in this explosive chapter. Chapter 4. the uninvited. The tension in the room was palpable as the two figures faced each other. Eddie lay crumpled on the floor, struggling to focus through the haze of pain. His body throbbed with every heartbeat, the taste of blood metallic in his mouth. Venom was trying to heal him, but the symbiote's power felt weak, drained by the relentless attack. "Who?" Eddie rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Who is that?" Venom stirred weakly in response. I don't know. But it's not one of ours." The new figure's energy pulsated, filling the small apartment with a menacing charge. The Reckoning, for the first time, hesitated. Its glowing eyes flickered as it studied the newcomer, clearly sensing a power far greater than its own. "You are trespassing," the Reckoning growled, its voice losing some of its icy calm. "This is not your concern." The newcomer stepped forward, its form still shrouded in darkness, but Eddie could make out the glint of something familiar in the creature's black, sinewy body. A symbiote, one like Venom, but different. More ancient. More dangerous. "Everything is my concern," the creature rumbled, its voice like stones grinding together. "You've meddled long enough. Leave." Who is this unexpected ally? Can Eddie and Venom trust them? Stay tuned for the shocking revelations in the next chapter. Chapter 5. The New Player. The room felt smaller as the newcomer stepped forward, his presence suffocating. Eddie could feel the tension thickening in the air, the weight of two opposing forces pressing against his chest. He staggered to his feet, clutching his side, every muscle screaming in pain. Venom stirred within him, weak but determined. What is that thing?" Eddie's voice was a rasp, barely more than a whisper. He couldn't tell if he was asking himself or Venom, but it didn't matter. He needed answers. Venom's voice, usually brimming with confidence, was subdued. "I don't know. But it's not one of ours." There was a pause, and then the symbiote's voice dropped lower, almost in awe. "It's something more." The newcomer stood between Eddie and the Reckoning, its massive frame crackling with dark energy. Tendrils of symbiotic matter lashed out from its form, but they weren't like Venom's. These were more controlled, more deliberate, as if each one had a mind of its own. The glow from the Reckoning's eyes dimmed slightly, the figure clearly thrown off by this unexpected presence. "You are trespassing," the Reckoning hissed, though its earlier confidence had faltered. "This has nothing to do with you." The newcomer's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You overstep your bounds. You meddle with what you don't understand." Its gaze turned toward Eddie, dark eyes gleaming beneath the shadow of its hooded form. "The human is not your concern." Eddie's heart pounded in his chest, the gravity of the situation pulling him down. He was stuck between two forces far beyond his understanding, and neither seemed particularly interested in explaining their motives. He had no idea who this newcomer was, but something told him this wasn't a rescue mission. The Reckoning straightened, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You speak as if you know the balance," it said, its voice cutting through the thick air like a blade. "The symbiote is a weapon. It was never meant to bond with one such as him." The newcomer's dark, crackling energy flared, tendrils twitching as if eager for a fight. "You know nothing of the true balance." Its voice was low, dangerous. "Leave now, or I will make you." Eddie could barely keep up with the exchange, his head spinning. He wasn't sure who was on his side, if anyone. He could feel Venom coiling inside him, ready to strike if necessary, but there was something unsettling about the newcomer's presence. It felt ancient, powerful. "Eddie," Venom whispered, voice tense. "We don't know what this is, but it's not here to help us." Eddie swallowed hard, adrenaline coursing through him. "I kind of figured that." The Reckoning, sensing the shift in power, took a cautious step back. "You are no god," it spat, venom dripping from its words. "You are nothing but another anomaly. An outlier. And you will be erased, along with the human." In an instant, the room exploded with movement. The Reckoning lunged forward, dark energy crackling as it prepared to strike. But the newcomer was faster, tendrils of symbiote matter shot out, colliding with the Reckoning's attack in a burst of black and white light. Eddie shielded his eyes, the force of the impact shaking the walls around him. His ears rang, but through the chaos, he could hear Venom's voice. "Run, Eddie." He didn't need to be told twice. Staggering to his feet, Eddie darted for the door, his mind racing as he heard the sound of the two titans clashing behind him. The air was thick with energy, each blow sending shockwaves through the building. He knew that staying would mean certain death. But as he reached the hallway, a thought stopped him cold. What if this wasn't just about running? What if there was something more at stake than just his life? He could feel Venom's unease, the symbiote's usual bravado stripped away by the magnitude of what they were facing. "We can't keep running," Eddie whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "If we don't stop this thing, whatever it is, it'll kill us both." Venom hesitated, then growled in agreement. "You're right. But if we fight, we need a plan." Eddie grimaced. "We'll figure it out. Like we always do." Just as he turned back, ready to re-enter the fray, the building shook violently, dust and debris raining down from above. The Reckoning's voice echoed through the halls, filled with fury. "You cannot stop what is coming, Eddie Brock. The end is inevitable." Eddie clenched his fists, every nerve in his body screaming in protest. "We'll see about that." He ran back into the room just in time to see the newcomer slam the Reckoning into the ground, the floor cracking beneath the impact. For a brief moment, the Reckoning lay still, its form flickering, struggling to hold together. But then, it rose again, dark energy swirling around it, more furious than ever. "This isn't over," the Reckoning hissed, before vanishing into the shadows, leaving behind an eerie silence. Eddie stood frozen, breathing heavily, trying to process what had just happened. The newcomer turned toward him, its dark eyes piercing through the haze. "You are not safe," it rumbled, stepping closer. "They will come for you again. And next time, they will not be so easily deterred." Eddie bristled, his fist still clenched. "Who the hell are you?" The creature regarded him for a long moment before responding, its voice low and ominous. "I am Klyntar. One of the first. And if you want to survive what's coming, you will need my help." Can Eddie trust this ancient symbiote? Or is Klyntar part of an even greater danger? Subscribe and share to follow the shocking twists of this deadly game. Chapter 6. An Unlikely Alliance. Eddie stared at the creature, this Klyntar, uncertain of what to think. Venom writhed within him, restless and uneasy. "Help? Since when do your kind offer help?" Eddie asked, his voice thick with suspicion. Klyntar's eyes glinted in the dim light, unreadable. "Not all of us are as you know. There is more to the symbiotes than hunger and chaos. There is a purpose." Eddie didn't trust it. He didn't trust anyone these days, not even Venom half the time. But something about Klyntar's presence, its power, felt different. Like a force of nature. Ancient and unstoppable. Venom hissed. "He's hiding something. We cannot trust him, Eddie." Eddie crossed his arms, staring down the creature in front of him. "Then why should I listen to you?" he demanded, his voice rising. "Why should I believe anything you're saying?" Klyntar stepped closer, its tendrils swirling around its massive frame. "Because, Eddie Brock, without me, you will die. They will come for you. And when they do, nothing will stop them. Not even Venom." The words hung heavy in the air, and for the first time in a long time, Eddie felt truly powerless. Is Klyntar an ally or a new threat? What does Venom fear most? Subscribe and stay tuned for the epic finale.